Hey everybody, Patty Ann here. Hang on while I take a slurp. Well, I hope it's not a slurp of my coffee. I know. A lot of you say, can't you drink that coffee before you get on? And I guess I could, but I like to enjoy my coffee with you. Anyway, today's the second installment of our beginner series for Cricut owners and for silhouette owners for making cards. I'm going to give you the template, and you'll be able to go to the blog where this template is from, and we are free to use it because you'll see that link below. But anyway, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make it in Cricut Design Space, and then the next thing I'll do is show you how to make it in Silhouette. So let's get started. Okay, here we are in Cricut Design Space, and this is what our second template looks like. Paper Play Sketch 002, and you can get it at this website if you'd prefer, which is right down here. So the only thing you need to do then is save it and bring it into Cricut Design Space so you have the sample here to work with. The first thing that I did do was I just went ahead and came over here to the Shape tool and got a square and drew it out as a rectangle, and then I resized it because we know that our A2 size cards, and those are the ones I like to make, before they're folded are, let's look up here, 8.5 inches wide, that's this way here, by 5.5 inches tall right here. So I've got my whole card that can be folded in half, and I can only work on half of this card now for the front. So what I can do is I can come over here to the Shape tool and get the score line and just bring it over here after it comes in. I can resize this score line now so that it's 5.5 inches high, because then it will be exactly the right height that I need. And now I'd want to center it. So I'm going to grab both the card and the score line, so they should both be selected over here. Here's the score line in the Layers panel, and here's the card. And I'm going to come up here to the top, Align Center. Okay, so if this were truly my card, we would only have this part to work on, as if this were here, right? So I could actually even make this look bigger. Okay, like that. But let me make it a little smaller so it'll fit better. Okay, so let's look at this card now. The first thing it looks like it has is probably a white or whatever color this whole card is. That's the outermost border. And then it has another piece inside of that. So what I do to do that is just come over here to the Shape tool and get the square again. And this time, once again, I would unlock the lock and I would resize this. Now we know from last week that this square is going to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than the front of this rectangle. So this rectangle, if it really were cut in half, it would be, let's look at the dimensions. It's 8.5 inches from here to here. So if I cut that in half, this side would be 4.25 or 4.25 inches wide by 5.5. So I could make this piece that size. Let's do that. I will make this piece, unlock the lock, and I'm going to make this 4.25 inches wide, hit enter, and then I'm going to make it 5.5 inches high. So as not to confuse us, what I'll do, I think, is I'll just get rid of this piece behind here and pretend like we folded this card in half, and what we're left with is this piece right here. It's folded in half. I can change its color to that gray if I'd like. Okay. All right, so this is the very front of my card. Notice now there is a piece that's going to be inside of that. Now on the sample one that I'm going to show you, I made my inside part a checkerboard. I made it that red buffalo plaid, and I did that as a print then cut in Silhouette. I'm not sure if my print then cut is working on my Cricut right yet, but to do this, the first thing I would do is just click on this image right here, and then I would duplicate it by coming up here to the upper right, and then I would make it smaller by 1/4 of an inch, both in the height and the width. So if it's 4.25 now, and I'm making it a 1/4 inch smaller, it will be 4 inches wide. I've got to unlock the lock now because I'm going to change the height to, it was 5.5. So if I deduct 1/4 of an inch, it's going to be 5.25 and hit enter. All right, now I'm going to measure that up to see, and that does look perfect just like that. So I'm going to change this one to red. I'm going to come up here to the color swatch and change it to red. I'm going to check right quick to see if by any chance my pattern fill is working. I'm going to change it to pattern. And just click on anything to see if it's working. And no, see, it's still not able to insert the pattern, so I'm not going to mess with that anyway. I'll just leave it at red. So that's my first piece there. That's this part right here. The next thing I have to do is I've got to make this rectangle here. And if you'll notice, there are two again. The back one goes from this side of the card to this side. So I'm going to get the shape tool again, get a square. I'm going to unlock it, and I'm just going to resize it so that it goes from this side of the red square to this side of the red square, just like that. Okay, and maybe I'll leave that black like that. And now there's an inner one, so I'm going to duplicate this one by coming up here to duplicate, and I'm going to change it to white just so we can keep track, and I'm going to make it 1/4 of an inch smaller. So again, well, what I should do actually is make this one, instead of having it an odd number right here, I should probably make this like 1.5 inches wide. Okay, so now I can more easily make this 1/4 of an inch smaller. And if I wanted to, I really don't need to make it 1/4 of an inch exactly. I could unlock the lock and bring this up here and just eyeball it till I'm happy with it, right? I mean, I don't have to do this math. Just eyeball it. That looks good to me. And I could center it if I want to, but this is just to get a rough idea. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is this piece right here. So I'm going to come over again and get the shape, grab the square, unlock the lock, and this time I'm just going to eyeball it again. So this piece is going to go here, something like that. And I need to have a piece inside of that now. So I'm going to come up here and duplicate that again. And rather than using all my math skills, I'm just going to click on this one and make it white. And then I'm just going to maneuver this to make it fit nicely like that. So that's perfect, just like that. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Then it'll be your thing to decorate it any way you like. I brought in this little gnome guy that I had. I'm going to move him to the front because that's what I put on my card that I did over in Silhouette. And I'll show you that card in just a minute. But basically, this is all you have to do. You could write a sentiment on the front if you want this to be a print then cut, this red piece. You could do that. And that's what I did on mine. So what I did was this. I clicked on the text tool and I typed in, there's gnome. Okay, so I put the word there's gnome. And I could leave it in black if I want to. I could make it white, whatever I want to do. There's gnome. And then what I did, there's gnome 1. Then I came over and got the text tool again and typed in the word 1 all in caps. Whoops, I-B-E-O-N-E. There's no 1. Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make this text so it aligns underneath of each other. So what I should have done actually was I could have clicked on the O, typed it, and then the N, and typed it, and then the E. So let me show you that. If I want to have them underneath each other, I go to the text tool. I can type in the O, hit the Enter key, the N, hit the Enter key, and the E, and hit the Enter key. And then I have the word 1, like this. And notice they're not aligned perfectly. They're aligned to the left. I might prefer to have them aligned center. So if I do, I could click on that and come up here and say Align Center. And that makes them centered right one underneath the other. And if I'm not happy with the letter spacing, of course, I can come up here and say ungroup to letters, and then I can change the spacing of these by just using my arrow key if I want to, or the tool. I like to use my arrow key a lot, or just even push it like that. And I don't know, maybe I prefer them aligned to the left. Let's try that. Well, I don't know if I can now. Let's see, align left. Yeah, I still can. No, I think I like them aligned center better. Or the other thing I could do is make them larger so they're really actually pretty much the same size. Kinda. Unlock this lock and just stretch it this way. And unlock the lock, stretch this. So you could just putz with these until you get it to look like you like it to look. I think that's a little bit too tall. But I don't want to spend all day doing that. So I'm just going to group these back together. Group. Oops, I got to come up here to the right and group. Make them a little bit smaller. And then put this here. And since that really doesn't fit very well with this, I'll move this down and this down. And I don't like how I have these spaced. They're too close together. So I'd fix that. But you get the idea of how this works, right? And then what I would actually have done, I would cut this and this. And this would be a print then cut. And I would cut this and this. This red piece right here, I'd probably go ahead and grab all of that. And let's see if I can grab it all. And say flatten, because I want it to be a print then cut. Perhaps. So then I would print that and cut that and continue on like this by just going to make it. It's going to show this piece over here, which I don't need. There's that. There's my little pieces I need. More and more. And there's my gnome, and I'm not sure what that little piece was. I think it was something on his hat. So I'll cancel this. Okay, so that's how easy it is to do this in Cricut Design Space, and I want to show you right now what the card looks like. So let's look down at my desktop for a sec. Okay, this is what the card looks like today. Now I did make this in silhouette because I did want to do a print then cut. So this red and black check buffalo plaid is a print then cut, as is this checkerboard. The gnome is print then cut. This text on here is print then cut. Everything's pretty much print then cut, so I don't have to go buy a bunch of paper. And then inside, again, so it says, there's gnome 1 and then like you. I did add this bow as a last minute thing because I started my text down too far and it felt a little off. I was either going to chop off the top or I added the bow, and I think the bow looks cute. So let's go now to silhouette and see how we did it there. Okay, here we are in silhouette, and I'll show you how I did the same, or did the card here. So once again, we have our sketch here that we're going to work on. This is number 2. And the first thing that I did, let me move this one over that I've already done. The first thing that I did again was to get out a piece of paper, or a rectangle I should say, and draw it the size I need it to be. And as you know, for an A2 card, the total card will be 8.5 inches wide. So I'm going to make this 8.5. Hit enter, and the height will be 5.5. I'll put 5.5 and enter. Now that's the total width of the card before it's folded. If I wanted to have this piece and add a score line, I can just come over here to the line tool and hold down my shift key and draw a line so it'll be nice and straight. And then I can either change it to a score line, like up here with these dash lines, or what I could do is just change it a different color that I know I'm not going to be using, like a green. And then, well, let me make this part transparent so you can see that it's definitely green. Let's see if it is. I can make it even thicker. Oh, I need to make the line green. There we go. And make it thicker so you can see it more clearly. And you can see that line is definitely green. So I'll know when I go to make it that the green line is supposed to be a score line. And it will just score instead of making those little cuts. But once again, just like we did in Cricut Design Space, we don't need this whole piece right here because this is going to be folded in half. All we're going to work with is this half over here, which is the front of the card. So let me delete this. And if I just want to make the front of the card again, I'm going to draw a piece out that's going to be 5.5 inches tall, hit enter, and 4.25 inches wide. And that's for an A2 size card. And so we can make that white if we'd like to, since my base of my card was white. Like that. So that's the back of my card. The front actually, but it'll be the right here on this part, right underneath this checkerboard look. So the next thing I did, just like in Cricut Design Space, basically, is I made a piece that was 1/4 of an inch smaller than this one. In order to do that in Silhouette, it's very easy. All I have to do is come over here to the offset panel, and I'm going to make an internal offset because I want it to be inside. I want it to be smaller, internal, and I want it to be squared off corners. Now, each side is offset by 1/8 of an inch. So this is 1/8 of an inch, and over here on this side, it's 1/8 of an inch. If you add 1/8 and 1/8, that's 1/4 of an inch. So basically, all I need to say is leave the distance at the default of 0.125. Okay? So again, let me cancel this for a sec. So what I would do is come over here to the offset tool, which is the star that has an offset on it. Here's the offset panel. I'm going to do an internal offset. Oops, I got to click on the item first. An internal offset, and I want it to be squared like this, and I'm going to leave it at the default of 0.125 and hit apply. So now what I can do is I can just drag, this is my back one because it's bigger. This is the one that's going to be the checkerboard look. So to make this my checkerboard look in Silhouette, all I need to do is come over here to the Painter's Palette, and when I'm here, I'm going to come to this part right here that says Fill Pattern. And then there's all these different patterns that I can choose. And I know if I scroll way down to the bottom are the ones that I added to the pattern area. So I'm going to click on this buffalo plaid just like that. So now we have this part of the card, and we have the buffalo plaid. And if I wanted to, I could add another one as well. But I'm pretty happy with that. So let's look at our sketch here. The next thing we need to do is this piece here, the horizontal piece. So once again, I'll come to the rectangle, and I need to draw it out. And we know this piece right here is 4 inches wide, this piece. And remember, we want our first piece to go from the right side all the way to the left side. So I'm going to actually make this just 4 inches wide. So I can come up here to the width and just type in 4 and hit enter. And it should fit here perfectly from side to side of the buffalo plaid. That's exactly what I want. Now if we look down here, you can see the one that I made for my sample. This part was black. So I might as well do it like that again. I'll make this piece black by coming up here, change it to black. Now what I can do is just offset this one. Come over to the offset tool again, which is the star. Click on it. I'm going to do another internal offset. I'm going to leave it at the default and say apply. Then I'm going to click the offset, which is hard to see right now. Here it is here. I'm going to change this offset's color. Right now it's transparent, as you can tell, because you can see the buffalo plaid behind it. I'm going to change it to white. Whoops, I got to click on it first. Then I'm going to change it to white. Okay, so let's see what we have so far. We have the card base, the buffalo plaid, the black piece that goes from side to side of the buffalo plaid, and I'll move it over a little bit, and the white piece that goes on top of that. Perfect, just like that. All right, the next thing we need to do is have this white piece, this rectangle, or this outermost piece. So again, I'll get a rectangle, and I'll just draw it out. Looks like a pretty good size. There we go, and I'll leave it white because that's how it is in my sample. But I'm going to come over to the offset tool, internal offset, Square is on, say apply. And while that's still selected, I can come over here because notice it's the checkerboard look. I can come over here to the paint palette, go to the fill, and I can click on the checkerboard just like that. Isn't that cool? And by the way, those of you who have Cricuts, you can use this for your Cricut, this program. It's a one-time fee of about $50, and it's yours, a program you own on your computer. You can save things as SVGs, and you can use them on your Cricut, whether you have a Maker or an Explorer. I have lots of classes. I have 5 free classes on my website, and then every Saturday we get together as a Patreon group. We have a blast every Saturday for an hour and a half, basically. We get together and chat for the first half of the hour, and then have a class for the hour. For the first half hour we chat, and the hour we have a class. Anyway, we're learning so much, and it's so useful and easy to use for Cricut. So anyway, let's go on now. I have that done. So now I can bring over my little fella here. Now, oh, wait, I also have a heart here. Let's make the heart first. Come over here to this shape tool. They're called the flexi shapes, and all these shapes are in here. Get the heart, draw out a heart, and I'm just going to size it so it fits nicely up here. A little too big, make it smaller. Okay, and then all I did was I went ahead and filled it with the buffalo plaid. So it's way down here at the bottom. Click. Here we go. And I just pop dotted that up on my original. Okay, for this guy right here, he's not, I could put him on just like that, black and white, or I could color him with my watercolor pencils or my markers, whatever, that'd be perfect. If you want him to be a print thin cut, totally, all you have to do is you'll have to trace him. To trace him, you come over to this panel, and this might seem like a lot to you guys who aren't familiar with this, but it gets very, very easy. You trace him just like this. It's a lot easier to do it in this program, I think, than in Inkscape. I just trace him, and now there's the part I want, and he is ready to go. So I could just make the outer part of him so we can see him well. We can't see him well if I make it a light gray. I better make it like a purple. Purple. Okay. And now the only thing I need to do is come up here to Object, Release Compound Path. That makes a whole bunch of little squares that I can color in individually. And I'm going to zoom in on him so I can see what I'm doing. So the first thing I might want to color in is his hat. And I believe I made that red. Boop. And I made his nose like a pinky color, flesh color. Doop. And I made his beard white. So you can see I'm just clicking on each one of these little outlined areas. Let me zoom in a little more so you can see. I can color his mittens. Click on one, hold down the shift, get the other one. I'll color those white. And let's see, what should I do? I think I made the rest of this stuff red. So I'm going to click on that part, hold down my shift, and grab these things. When I have them all selected, I'll go to the red. And I think I made him have brown shoes. I don't really remember. Maybe black, I don't know. Okay, so that's pretty much done, other than I want to color in this backing of him. I don't really want it to be purple. So I'm going to click on this outermost part, and you see it comes up as purple here. I'm going to change that to black, and now look at that. Look how beautiful that looks. Now there were some polka dotty things in here that I should have gotten rid of, and I would have gotten rid of if I was really going to print this one. And I can show you how to do it really quickly. What you do is this. Let me scroll in. See these little polka dotty things? All I do is I double click on it, and that brings up these little things called nodes. Can you see those little squares? And when I click on one of them, it turns white, and I can just delete it, and it's gone. Double click on this, there's some nodes, and I'm hitting delete on my keyboard, and then they're gone. Got to get a white one first because that means it's active. And I can actually get rid of that whole piece, because I don't really need it. And this piece I could get rid of too, but these nodes, again, I can actually just click on it to get rid of, to grab all the nodes. then I can hold the shift key down on my keyboard and get all those at once and hit delete, or I can double click on this to get a white node. That means it's active, and hit delete on my keyboard until they're all gone. Could get rid of these guys too. Delete, delete, delete. Okay, let's go and see what we have. Let's scroll out. So I didn't really need these extra pieces. Let's delete these as well. And notice there are a few more things I might like to get rid of. Like this purple here, I probably want to just make that black. And then I can get rid of this one. But this is the kind of stuff we learn in our classes. And we can get rid of these little dudes here too, these little nodes. Last one, double click till I get a white one. There we go, perfect. All right, now I can group him back together. So he should all be one piece. Okay, so let's scroll back out and let's put him here. And isn't that super cute? But that's not all that I did. If you look here at my sample, I did put there's gnome 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll type in there's, oops, all caps are on. There's gnome. That's all I'm going to do for that part. Although I might see if I'm able to come over here to the textile panel and maybe make that bold. I guess I can't really. So I'll just leave it like that. And I'm going to fit it over in here. There's gnome. Now remember on mine that I made originally, I had it too low. This time it looks like it's not going to be too low. So there's gnome, and then I put the big word 1 in here. To do a vertical text like that in Silhouette, all you do is get this text tool, come over here and type in the word 1, and I did do it all in caps. Now, all I have to do is this. Take this bar right here and move it over. See what that did to the E? It's doing the same thing to the O and E's, putting them right below each other. And again, just like in Cricut Design Space, if I don't like the character spacing or the letter spacing, I can adjust it. Oops, once I highlight them. Oops. I can adjust it here a little bit. Or I can ungroup them, and just like in Design Space, I can move this one down little by little with my arrow key, and this one down little by little with my arrow key. So I'm happy with how they look. And that needs to be down a little bit more. Okay, so let's see how this is going to fit. There's no 1. Maybe get a little tiny bit smaller. All right, I'm noticing something weird on this. Look at these little pieces over here. That must have been some junk that I left over from something else, from some of those little dots on him. So I want to get rid of those. I do not want those in my projects. I'm going to delete them. All right, let's see. I should. Okay, perfect. So there's gnome 1. Okay, so let's take this apart and see what we have now. We're going to use, this is going to be a print then cut. This is going to be a print then cut, and I'm actually going to duplicate it because I added one in the middle, and I duplicated it by clicking on Control D for duplicate. He's going to be a print then cut. This doesn't have to be a print then cut, nor does this, nor does this. The white piece, of course, is the half of a card, and I won't do that. But I do want this to be a print then cut, so I want to make sure I group this. And let's see. So the next thing I'd have to do if I was going to print then cut this in my Silhouette is I would have to come back to the page setup up here in the upper right hand corner and click on the third button over. And I want to turn on my registration marks. Okay, but these are set for a great big piece of paper. So I need to go back to my page setup and change my media size, instead of it being 12 by 12 to letter size. All right. Now I want to try to fit all these things in here, so I only have to use one sheet of paper. So I think I can scroll this way or twirl it, put it up in here. Remember now, when you're using this program, you may not put anything on this checkerboard area or outside of where this line is, and you can see it more clearly if you put the cut border on. You see that when I put the cut border off and on? I can't make anything be outside of that line or it will get cut right off. Okay, but I can do this, and these will fit like this. And then I can take some of this other stuff and fit it on. So like, why not, right? Do a print and cut for this. And it's not going to print anything since it's white, but it will cut it for me, which is great. Let's see, I think I fit a few more things on here before the way I had done it. So let's see, what else can I figure? Anyway, you can just move these around, you know, as much as you want. And you can swirl these around so they fit kind of nested together. Put this, will it fit? Yep, that'll fit there. This guy, I might be able to put him maybe like this. And this, oh, I know, turn this like this. So anyway, you just putz around with these things until you get as many to fit as you can, because why not have them print and cut? The white's not going to really print, but it will cut out, and you won't have to worry about getting your cutter out as much. Okay, so then all I would do now is go ahead and say File, Print, and for the printer that I have, and I'll have linked down below the printer that I use, I would click on Preferences. I would make it high quality, and I always like to have a print preview, and I'd say OK and print, and it's going to show me what's going to print. And again, then once it shows me what's going to print, I would send it to my printer, and then I would send that same page to my Cameo to have it cut. And I'm not sure why that's taking quite so long. Okay, so that's what's going to print. Oh, look, this is overlapping a little tiny bit, so I might want to move this one over a little bit. You can't see the white ones, but they are there. So that's what I would do. I'd just click Print then. Closing. Do you want to print? No, I've already printed it. So are those really overlapping? Not really. Okay. So that looked pretty good. So again, let's look down at my tabletop one more time, and I'll show you the finished product. And so your challenge this week, remember we're doing this weekly, is to do this sketch right here. Feel free to put any images you want in here, resize it to whatever size you'd like. You just have to have these components in it. And you can either make the card if you'd like to, or just make it and put a picture on our Facebook group showing what you've made. And I'll have the link below for the Facebook group as well. It's called Cutting Up with Patty Ann. It's a group. So anyway, let's look down here and I'll show you one more time. Okay, again, this is the finished card. I did do this one in silhouette because I wanted to use the patterns that are available to me there. You can also do it in Cricut Design Space, as you saw in the beginning of the video. I hope that you'll join us. This is the second of who knows how many of these little challenges we'll do. It's a lot of fun. I think you can learn a lot whether you're using Design Space or Silhouette Studio. And don't forget, you can use Silhouette Studio for your Cricut machines, whether you're using an Explorer machine or a Maker. What I would have done if I wanted to use this exact card and cut it out in my Cricut is I would just save this as a JPEG and then open it over there. And the only thing I'd have to make sure to do is to resize it properly. But again, if you ever should decide to do that, I have tons and tons of tutorials on how to do this. And also our Patreon group is fabulous. We have so much fun and we all just learn so much. So again, thanks for joining me. Give me a thumbs up if you'd like to continue seeing these. Also, make sure you join our Facebook group so that you can post what you've done. I'd love to see it. Thanks again. Bye, y'all.